What's up, Ragin Nation? How y'all doing? This is Alex. Are you watching the Ragin Ronin review? And it has been a while since I've done a video. 2 weeks, in fact. That's a pretty long time. I usually don't take this long to make a video, but I ran into some technical problems. I had to bring in my iMac to Apple to get a hardware replacement, and it was just really inconvenient, so I couldn't really do any editing. But anyways, I got it back, and I'm back in business. If you guys haven't checked out my last video from 2 weeks ago, that would be my #1 Marvel movie countdown. Check it out over here. But anyways, let's get on with what I have to talk about in this video, and that would be another top 10 list. And this list was suggested to me by Aaron from the Ragin Nation through Facebook, and he said to me, Alex, do a vid on the top 10 80s action film countdown, like Terminator, Rocky, Aliens, etc. Please, because I'd really like to see your views on this area of film. Thank you, Aaron, for suggesting this to me, because this will be a very interesting list, because I love the 80s. The 80s was a very significant time in the entertainment industry. I grew up in the 80s, but I don't remember a whole lot about, I guess, all the films. I haven't seen a whole lot of the films in the 80s, but I became a movie buff in the 90s, so I went back to, watching the movies in the 80s when I got old enough to watch those movies. But anyways, as I was saying, the 80s is a very significant time in the entertainment industry for, music, television, and especially film, because not only did a lot of these movies have great stories and great characters, but they're original stories with iconic and memorable characters. And to this date, a lot of the films that are made today are based off of the stories and from the movies that were made in the 80s. So that was a really great time. So once again, thank you for suggesting me to make this list, because this is going to be a very, very colorful list. Mainly because, well, I've seen a lot of movies in the 80s, and I think the 80s was a great period, but there's still some movies and, some really, I guess, high-profile films that I don't remember a whole lot about. So I've seen a lot of these films, but I haven't seen a lot of these other films. So for example, in my list, I won't include movies like Lethal Weapon, like the trilogy, or Rambo, the trilogy also, because I really don't remember a whole lot about them. I remember seeing bits and pieces, but I don't remember them from beginning to end. So you'll notice that this list is more my list as opposed to a very general list. So in no way is this a definitive list. That's what these top 10 lists are. These top 10 lists are based off of, someone's opinion, specifically mine, and your top 10 list will be different from mine as well. Just because your top 10 list is different from mine doesn't mean that yours suck. It just means that we have different taste in movies. But anyways, with that being said, let's get on with the list. And we're going to start off with number 10, and that would be Tremors. Okay, so I realize this is a bit of a strange movie to pick in a top 10 80s action movie, top 10 list, but this movie is an action movie, but it's more like a monster action film. It's like horror action comedy. And that's what it is that made me like it so much. It's got a lot of monster action in it, and it's also a comedy, and you have sandworms. They're fighting sandworms with guns and dynamite, and it's just a whole lot of fun. So it's a totally underrated film starring Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, and I love Tremors. So that's my number 10 movie. Number 9 is Big Trouble in Little China, directed by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell, the very first time I've seen Kurt Russell. And I love this movie because it's such a multi-genre blending movie. It's got martial arts in it, a comedy, action, a little bit of supernatural stuff, and a tiny bit of romance. And it just is so fun. So you gotta check it out. Big Trouble in Little China, directed by John Carpenter, and it's got a lot of great lines in the movie. Number 8 would be Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. You're probably wondering, why isn't Raiders of the Lost Ark in this movie, and why did I pick Temple of Doom over Raiders of the Lost Ark? Well, there's something about Temple of Doom that I really, really liked, and that is really Steven Spielberg's brand of action. It's a very, very specific style which brings us into the movie. It's like what I like to call the the ride films. You know, I felt that Temple of Doom was the beginning of the ride films, the roller coaster films. You feel like you're in a ride, and his level of excitement brings us into the movie, especially in that minecart sequence. I love that. What are we up to? Number 7. Number 7 would be Top Gun, directed by Tony Scott. Top Gun, I have to say, is one of the most iconic films of the 80s because it's one of those films, or probably the only film, which has the best sequences of aerial combat ever captured on film. We got F-14 Tomcats versus Russian MiGs, and it was just filmed so well and so exciting. And you also got great characters like Maverick and Goose and all of the other different call signs that I don't really remember. But still, it's just a great film, and that's why it's in my top 10 list. Number 6 would be Batman, directed by Tim Burton. Tim Burton really took the comic book movie genre to a whole new level, bringing in a more dark, gritty, and violent take on Batman. You know, we're used to seeing the more cartoony style comic book movie. Comic book movies based, back in the 80s, because, well, there was a whole lot of limitations. It's just like a guy in costume running around and fighting crime. But, you know, this version with Tim Burton's Batman really just did something different, and it really reinvented the genre. So I really love that about his take on Batman, and it's definitely a movie that I have to put in my top 10 80s action movies list. Moving on, we have RoboCop as number 5, and RoboCop is another one of those movies that I like to call iconic because the character of RoboCop is iconic, and Paul Verhoeven really gave us the most violent film ever. You know, I wasn't really old enough to watch this movie. I grew up in the 80s, but this movie was like a rated hard R. Okay, it was a hard R rating, and it almost had like a rating higher than R because it was just so violent. And when I was watching it, well, first thing I gotta let you know is that I wasn't even allowed to watch it. My dad was watching it late at night while we were sleeping, or at least he thought me and my brother were sleeping. And then I heard Ed 209 talking. I heard these like robot voice, right? And then I peeked out, and then I saw this guy get blown to bits, like, and then it disturbed me. It was such a violent scene, but it haunted me for a really long time. And then eventually I felt brave enough to watch the whole movie, and I thought it was awesome. Probably one of the better robot films out there. So definitely RoboCop is one of my top 5 films in my top 80s action films list. Number 4 would be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I just feel that Steven Spielberg and the Indiana Jones series just gets better and better and better, but it caps off at The Last Crusade. It doesn't get better with Kingdom of Crystal Skull, but Last Crusade was really, really something special. So that movie is just a really exciting film and definitely better than Temple of Doom. Number 3 would be a movie directed by James Cameron, and that would be Aliens. Aliens was such an awesome film. You got sci-fi action, horror, and action. You know, he really reinvented, or he really invented a brand new genre, and that would be the grunts in space genre. That would be, you know, soldiers fighting aliens in space. So that was a genre that he actually created, and it would be followed by movies like Starship Troopers, and of course another film directed by James Cameron, that would be Avatar. And what he did with this movie is that he took the original, which was awesome, which was the terror in space genre, and then he combined it with soldiers. And then with that combination, you get lots and lots of action, and you also still have lots of horror elements. So that is just such a great thing that James Cameron did for the franchise. Number 2 is Die Hard, directed by John McTiernan. And Die Hard should actually be a film that should be everybody's, a movie in everybody's top 10 80s action films list, or just top 10 action films list in general, because it's such a great film. And it is made great. It is great because of John McClane. The character of John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, he's a character that everybody can relate to. Well, maybe not everybody, but he's a guy who's going through some very normal human problems. You know, for example, he's going through a divorce. He wants to be at a he doesn't want to be at a party, but he has to be there. He's dealing with like a situation where nobody can get him out of that situation except for himself. So basically, he has to solve this problem on his own, and something extraordinary is going on, but nobody believes him. So, you know, we really want to root for this character, and he's such an awesome action hero in this movie. In fact, you know, a lot of people even call him Mr. Action, because he really does create such a great character with the John McClane character. So Die Hard is a great film. Number 1 is Predator. Predator, directed also by John McTiernan, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and also followed by a great cast including Bill Duke, Carl Weather, and Jesse Ventura, to name a few. And when I watched this movie, I really thought that I was watching, you know, another military film. But I had no idea that, you know, we were gonna get like an alien in there hunting them one by one, and it was just so awesome. Die Hard is a great film, but I have to say that Predator is a movie that I'm gonna put as my number 1 action film in the 80s. So it's just a movie that will always stick out in my mind, especially because of this sequence, and that is the sequence where Jesse Ventura's character Blaine gets taken out, and then everybody just goes off guns blazing, mowing down, leveling an entire jungle. That scene will always stick in my head, and I think that that was one of the most fun scenes that people saw when you're watching the movie, because when you're watching it, you're like, holy crap. So it's really, really cool, and it's one of those films that you just feel like you're in the movie, because you're invested in these characters, and then each of one of them get taken out one by one, and you're left with a Dutch played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then it's man against nature against beast. So there you have it. So that is my top 10 movies from the 80s action genre category. What is yours? Let me know in the comment section below. And also, by the way, I'd like to once again thank you, Aaron, for this suggestion. I'm kind of liking these top 10 suggestions, so let me know in the comment section below on YouTube or even Twitter or Facebook, and tell me what other top 10 list would you like me to make a video on, because I'd like to do more of these top 10 lists. I'm really enjoying them, and it's really a great opportunity for you to get to know somebody, you know. If you understand what kind of movies they like or what taste in movies they like, you get to know that person on a more personal level. So that's the way I feel about these top 10 lists, or even people's taste in movies, okay? Anyways, there you have it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation, and also follow me on Twitter at Ragin Nation. By the way, did you get yourself a Ragin Nation FTW t-shirt with the embroidered patch of the Ragin Ronin? If you haven't, email me at raginnation@gmail.com while supplies last, alright? So get yours today, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Peace. Put too many characters in it, and it was like a big, complete mess, okay? Number 20, Fantastic Four Rise of Silver Surfer. Only slightly better than Fantastic Four, and it was only because